Hashtag what did ancient humans do all day before jobs existed? You probably spend 8 hours a day working, another eight sleeping, and if you're like most people, you're stressed about both. But here's the thing that nobody tells you. For 99% of human history, work didn't exist the way you know it. So what did ancient humans actually do all day? And more importantly, were they happier than you? That's what we're exploring today. Let's start with something that might shock you. Modern humans work about 40 to 50 hours per week on average. Ancient hunter-gatherers, they worked about 15 to 20 hours per week. That's it. Some anthropologists argue it was even less, which means your prehistoric ancestors had more free time than you do right now, despite having literally zero technology, zero infrastructure, and zero convenience foods. They woke up, did what they needed to do, and spent the rest of their time, well, that's the fascinating part. But first, we need to understand something crucial. Ancient humans didn't have jobs because they didn't have employers. They had something way more fundamental called subsistence living. And subsistence living wasn't a 9 to 5, it was way more flexible than that. Here's how it actually worked. A typical day for a hunter-gatherer started early, usually right around sunrise. Why? Because that's when animals are most active and visible. The men would head out for hunting. But here's what's important. Hunting wasn't a daily thing. They didn't hunt every single day like a job you have to show up to. They hunted maybe 3 or 4 days a week. The rest of the time, they weren't working. The women, meanwhile, would gather, and gathering was the primary food source for most ancient communities, not hunting. This is something you probably got wrong. Gathering provided about 60 to 80% of the calories in most hunter-gatherer diets, and gathering was way more efficient than hunting. A woman could gather enough food for her family in about 4 to 6 hours. Then she was done. Not 8 hours, not 10 hours, done. So what did they do with all that extra time? This is where it gets interesting. A huge chunk of their day went to socializing, and we're not talking about Instagram or TikTok. We're talking about actual face-to-face interaction. Ancient humans would sit around with their community, talking, sharing stories, building relationships. They spent hours doing this, just hanging out, just being present with other people. Anthropologists call this grooming time, and it was essential to how societies functioned. It built trust, it created bonds, it prevented conflict. It was basically the foundation of civilization, and it took up significant portions of their day. Here's something else they did. They created art. Seriously. We're talking about the incredible cave paintings at Chaucer or Altamira. These weren't quick doodles. These took hours and hours of time. Humans were making jewelry, carving tools that were way more elaborate than they needed to be, creating music with bone flutes. Why would they do this if they didn't have the time? Because they had the time. They made beautiful things not out of necessity, but because they wanted to, because they could. They also ate, and we mean really ate. Meals weren't rushed. There was no such thing as a lunch break because there was no work to break from. But when they did eat, it was a social event. The whole community would gather, and meals could take hours. People would tell stories, share gossip, settle disputes, plan hunts. Eating was entertainment. It was connection. It was culture. Rest and sleep were huge parts of their day too, but not the way you think. They didn't have this rigid 8 hour sleep schedule. Instead, they would sleep in multiple sessions. They might sleep deeply for a few hours after dark, wake up for a couple hours where they'd sit by the fire and socialize or work on tools, and then sleep again. Some historians think this biphasic sleep pattern might have actually been better for human brain function than our modern consolidated sleep. Another massive portion of their day went to maintenance. Tools broke. That hunting spear, it needed to be replaced or sharpened. Clothes needed repairs. Hides needed to be processed. Shelters needed maintenance. But here's the key difference. This work was usually social. You'd sit around with other people, working on your tools, talking, joking, building relationships while being productive. It wasn't this isolated, soul-crushing desk job. It was communal. They also spent serious time on spirituality and ritual. ceremonies, dances, religious practices. These could take up entire days sometimes, and this wasn't separate from daily life. It was woven into everything. Every hunt might start with a ritual. Every season change would have celebrations. Every major life event would have ceremonies. Hours and hours of their time went to these practices because they believed it was meaningful. Here's the part that really gets people. They also had leisure time, actual, genuine, non productive leisure. Archaeological evidence suggests they would take breaks just to relax. They would play games, they would swim, they would sit in the sun and do absolutely nothing. Not because they were lazy, but because they understood something that modern society has completely forgotten. Rest is productive, downtime is essential. Humans need time to just exist. Seasonal patterns were huge too. During certain times of the year when food was abundant, they barely worked at all. When food was scarce, they worked more. It wasn't this constant, unchanging grind. There was rhythm to it. There were busy seasons and slow seasons. And then there's something that probably surprises you the most. They had time for education. They taught children. They trained young people in hunting, in gathering, in making tools, in understanding medicine. But they weren't forcing it. Kids would learn naturally, often through play and observation. Elders would share knowledge and stories. Education wasn't this stressful, standardized process. It was organic. Now, here's the real question. Were they happier? The honest answer is complicated. We can't actually ask them, so we have to look at the evidence. Skeletal remains suggest ancient humans had less stress-related illness than modern humans do. Their bones show signs of better nutrition once you adjust for their shorter lifespans. They had fewer signs of diseases related to stress and anxiety. They worked less, they had more downtime, they had strong communities, they had meaningful work. Most of what they did had clear, immediate results. Hunt something, eat it. Gather something, eat it. Build something, use it. Compare that to modern life. You work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, often without seeing immediate results from your labor. You're stressed, you're burned out, you're isolated. You scroll through your phone instead of talking to people face to face. You don't have communities, you don't have meaningful rituals. You have productivity metrics and quarterly reviews instead. But here's the thing. We can't just go back to being hunter-gatherers. Society has changed. We have civilization now. We have science and medicine and literature and art and all of these incredible things. But maybe the question isn't, should we go back? Maybe the question is, what did ancient humans understand about how to live that we've completely forgotten? Because at the end of the day, humans are social creatures. We need community. We need downtime. We need meaningful work. We need time to rest. We need ritual and spirituality. We need time to just be. And every single one of those things was a natural part of ancient human life. Maybe that's why so many people today feel like something is fundamentally broken, because something is. We've built a civilization around work that doesn't match how human beings are actually designed to live. Ancient humans did all day what we're forgetting how to do. They lived fully, completely, in community, with purpose and rest in equal measure. And that's something worth thinking about the next time you're stressed about your job, or wondering why you feel so disconnected from everything, or realizing that you haven't had a real conversation with a friend in weeks.